The skies above Vancouver darkened without warning. Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood at the command center of the Pacific Defense Grid, watching as the holographic displays erupted with unprecedented readings. What had begun as routine atmospheric monitoring had transformed into humanity's worst nightmare in a matter of minutes. "Sir, we're detecting multiple objects decelerating from FTL," her second-in-command reported, voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "They're massive. Nothing like anything we've ever tracked." Sarah's fingers flew across the haptic interface, bringing up detailed scans. The objects were ships, warships, if their energy signatures were any indication. Each one dwarfed the largest vessels humanity had ever constructed. Their hulls gleamed with an impossible metal that seemed to drink in light itself. "Get me a direct line to UNDF command," she ordered, even as her mind raced through the implications. Humanity had known they weren't alone in the galaxy for decades, but contact had been limited to long-range communications and automated probes. This was different. This was an invasion force. The communications officer's face went pale. "Lieutenant, they're jamming all quantum channels. We're cut off from orbital command." A flash of light illuminated the command center as the first shots were fired. Not at military targets, not at defense installations, but at civilian population centers. The Nexari, as they would later be known, hadn't come to conquer. They'd come to eradicate. Sarah's training kicked in, pushing aside the horror. "Initialize Protocol 0. All planetary defense grids to autonomous mode, and get me everything we have on their energy signatures. There's got to be a pattern here." The next 48 hours became a blur of desperate defense and frantic analysis. While the rest of the world erupted into chaos, Sarah and her team noticed something peculiar. The alien weapons, devastating as they were, operated on principles that shouldn't have worked according to human understanding of physics. Their energy signatures showed impossible fluctuations, as if they existed partially out of phase with normal space-time. It was during a rare moment of quiet, as she stared at the wavelength patterns for the 100th time, that Sarah noticed it. The fluctuations weren't random. They followed a pattern that looked strikingly similar to human neural oscillations. The same patterns her team had been studying for the next generation of human-computer interfaces. "Dr. Rivera," she called out to their resident physicist, "look at this. The Nexari weapons. They're not just energy weapons. They're some kind of consciousness-guided system." The older scientist adjusted his glasses, studying the patterns. His eyes widened. "Lieutenant, this could explain everything. Their entire technology base might be built around manipulating reality through consciousness, but they're calibrated for their own neural patterns, which means they might be vulnerable to human consciousness interference." Sarah finished, a plan already forming. It was insane, desperate, and probably suicide. But they were running out of options. Over the next few hours, Sarah's team worked frantically to modify their quantum communication arrays. If they were right, human neural patterns, properly amplified and focused, could disrupt the Nexari weapon systems. If they were wrong, Earth would lose its last line of defense. The opportunity came sooner than expected. A Nexari battle group descended toward Vancouver, likely intending to finish what their first strike had started. Sarah stood at the modified command interface, neural link humming against her temple. "All units, prepare to engage," she ordered, her voice carrying across all remaining defense channels. "Remember your training. Focus your thoughts like we practiced. We are humanity's last line of defense. We will not fail." The Nexari ships opened fire, their weapons charging with that familiar, reality-warping energy. But this time, humanity was ready. Sarah engaged the neural link, and thousands of human minds connected through the defense grid focused their consciousness in perfect synchronization. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Nexari weapons sputtered and failed, their carefully calibrated consciousness tech disrupted by the unified mental assault of thousands of human minds. Their ships, suddenly vulnerable, fell prey to conventional human weapons. As the first Nexeri ship crashed into the Pacific, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. They had found a weakness, one the aliens never could have anticipated. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their minds, their unity, and their indomitable will to survive. The battle for Earth was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, hope flickered in the darkness. Humanity had earned its first victory, and with it, the knowledge that they weren't as helpless as the Nexeri had assumed. The real war was just beginning, and Sarah Chen had given humanity a fighting chance. As reports of their success spread across the remaining defense networks, Sarah turned her attention to the data they'd gathered from the defeated ships. Understanding their enemy would be crucial in the days to come, but one thing was already clear. The Nexeri had made a fatal mistake in underestimating human potential. It would not be their last. Dr. Rivera's laboratory beneath the ruins of Vancouver had become humanity's best hope for survival. 3 weeks after Lieutenant Chen's discovery of the neural disruption technique, scientists from around the world had gathered in this underground facility, working tirelessly to understand and exploit their newfound advantage against the Nexeri. "The neural patterns are getting stronger," Dr. Rivera announced, gesturing to the holographic display where complex waveforms danced in perfect synchronization. "Each time we interface with their technology, our understanding grows exponentially." Sarah Chen, now promoted to commander, studied the patterns with intense focus. The neural disruption strategy had bought Earth precious time, but the Nexeri were adapting. They needed something more. "Show me the latest scans from their salvaged ships," she requested, running her fingers through her short black hair, now streaked with premature gray from weeks of constant stress. The holographic display shifted, revealing the intricate architecture of Nexeri technology. What had initially appeared as solid matter was actually a complex web of consciousness-reactive materials. The aliens had evolved beyond traditional engineering, creating technology that responded directly to thought. "Commander," a young physicist called out from her station, "I think you need to see this." Dr. Maya Patel's hands flew across her console, bringing up a new set of readings. "We've been analyzing the biological samples from the crashed ships. The Nexeri neural structure is fundamentally different from ours in one crucial way." The display showed 2 brain wave patterns side by side. The Nexeri pattern was remarkably uniform, almost artificial in its regularity. The human pattern, by contrast, showed incredible variety and complexity. "They're like a single instrument playing one note," Maya explained, "while human consciousness is an entire orchestra. Our neural diversity isn't just a difference, it's an advantage they never considered possible." Sarah leaned forward, her mind racing with possibilities. "Can we weaponize this difference?" Dr. Rivera nodded slowly, his eyes lighting up with understanding. "Not just weaponize it, Commander. We can use it to completely override their systems. Their technology is built on the assumption of neural uniformity. The sheer complexity of human consciousness must be like sensory overload to their systems." The next few days were a blur of activity as the team worked to develop what they called the Neural Cascade Protocol. Using the salvaged Nexeri technology, they created interfaces that could amplify and project the full spectrum of human neural patterns. The theory was simple. Instead of just disrupting their weapons, they could potentially take control of entire Nexeri systems. The opportunity to test their theory came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a massive Nexeri fleet approaching the Sol system. This wasn't just another attack force. It was a full-scale invasion fleet. "They're not taking any chances this time," Sarah observed grimly, watching the tactical display. "They must have realized we've learned to counter their primary weapons." Dr. Rivera approached her, holding what looked like a modified neural interface. "Then let's show them what else we've learned. The neural cascade system is ready, but untested. We'll only get one shot at this." Sarah took the device, studying it carefully. "How many people do we need?" "That's the beautiful part," Maya interjected. "Because we're using the full spectrum of human neural patterns, We only need a small team. Quality over quantity. But the people we choose need to have exceptionally dynamic neural signatures. The selection process was quick but thorough. Sarah and 11 others were chosen, their neural patterns representing the widest possible range of human consciousness. They called themselves the Cascade Team. As the Nexari fleet entered the inner solar system, the team took their positions in the newly constructed Neural Command Center. The interfaces hummed to life, connecting their minds not just to each other, but to every piece of salvaged Nexari tech they had collected. Remember, Sarah addressed her team, we're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting to show them that humanity's greatest strength is our diversity, our ability to think and adapt in ways they never imagined possible. The first wave of Nexari ships entered Earth's orbit, their weapons charging. But this time, humanity didn't wait for them to strike first. Sarah gave the signal, and the Cascade Team activated their interfaces. The effect was beyond anything they had anticipated. The combined neural patterns of 12 unique human minds, amplified and focused through their adapted technology, didn't just disrupt the Nexari systems, it overwhelmed them completely. Ships began to power down, their consciousness-driven technology unable to process the complexity of human neural inputs. Through their neural link, Sarah could feel the confusion and fear of the Nexari crews as their supposedly superior technology betrayed them. For a species that had evolved to think as one, the cacophony of human consciousness was like a tidal wave against their carefully ordered minds. All Earth Defense Forces, engage now. Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the strain of maintaining the neural link. Across the planet, humanity's conventional weapons opened fire on the paralyzed Nexari fleet. Ships that had once seemed invincible fell one by one, unable to defend themselves against even the simplest human weapons. As the battle ended, Sarah and her team slowly disconnected from the neural interface. They were exhausted but triumphant. Humanity had just proved that their greatest perceived weakness, their neural diversity, their individuality, their complexity of thought, was actually their greatest strength. The Nexari had come expecting to find a primitive species easy to overwhelm with their consciousness-based technology. Instead, they had found a species whose minds were so diverse and adaptable that they turned the aliens' own technology against them. But even as the celebration began, Sarah knew this wasn't the end. The Nexari would adapt, would try to find ways around this new defense. And when they did, humanity would need to be ready with yet another innovation they could never predict. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display in the newly established Terran Defense Command, watching as hundreds of ships took formation above Earth. Each vessel represented a perfect fusion of human ingenuity and adapted Nexari technology, the result of 6 months of furious innovation since their first major victory. Final systems check complete, Maya Patel, now Chief Science Officer, reported. The neural interface matrix is stable across all ships. We're ready to begin Operation Blindside. Sarah nodded, her expression grim. The intelligence gathered from captured Nexari ships had revealed a disturbing truth. Earth wasn't chosen at random. The Nexari had been studying humanity for decades, viewing their neural diversity as a threat to galactic stability. The attempt to eradicate humanity was a preventive strike. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Sarah's voice carried across the fleet-wide neural network. You know why we're here. The Nexari thought our minds made us dangerous. Today, we proved them right. The fleet jumped to FTL, using human-modified versions of Nexari drive systems. Their destination, the Nexari primary supply hub in the Centauri sector. But unlike traditional FTL travel, these ships moved in perfect neural synchronization, their human crews working in harmony through the neural interface matrix. Dr. Rivera's voice came through the command channel. Admiral, the quantum scans are confirming our theory. The Nexari's entire civilization is built around neural uniformity. Their structures, their ships, even their cities, everything operates on the assumption of synchronized consciousness. which makes them vulnerable to what we're about to do, Sarah replied, allowing herself a small smile. Begin Phase 1. The human fleet dropped out of FTL directly above the Nexari hub world. Dozens of enemy ships moved to intercept, but they weren't prepared for what happened next. Instead of traditional combat, the human fleet initiated what they called a neural storm. Through the interface matrix, thousands of human minds projected their thoughts simultaneously, each one unique, each one adding to the complexity of the assault. The effect on Nexera systems was catastrophic. Their consciousness-based technology, designed for uniformity and order, couldn't handle the sheer diversity of human neural patterns. Supply ships fell out of orbit. Defense systems shut down. Communication networks collapsed. The entire hub world's infrastructure began to fail as human consciousness overwhelmed their neural-sensitive technology. Phase 2, Sarah commanded. Deployment teams, you have a go. From the human ships, specially trained teams descended to the surface. Each carried modified versions of Nexari technology, redesigned to work with human neural patterns. They moved through the paralyzed Nexari defenses like ghosts, planting neural beacons at strategic points. This is Team Alpha, a voice reported through the neural link. Beacons are in place, ready to initiate the cascade. Sarah took a deep breath. What they were about to attempt had never been done before. Initiate. The beacons activated, creating a web of human neural patterns across the entire hub world. But instead of just disrupting Nexari technology, these devices began to rewrite it. Systems that had been designed for uniform consciousness were forced to adapt to human neural diversity. Through the neural interface matrix, Sarah could feel the shock and confusion of the Nexari as their world transformed around them. Their technology, the foundation of their society, was being fundamentally altered to accommodate the very diversity they had feared. Admiral, Maya called out, her voice urgent. We're detecting massive energy signatures. The hub's central database is responding to the cascade. The holographic display erupted with new data as the database's security systems fell. Information flooded through the neural network, tactical data, strategic plans, and most importantly, the true reason for the Nexari's fear of humanity. They knew, Sarah whispered, reading through the data. They knew we were different from the moment they detected us. Every other species they've encountered shares their neural uniformity. We're the first ones they found with truly diverse consciousness. The implications were staggering. The Nexari hadn't just attacked Earth out of fear. They had attacked because humanity represented an evolutionary path they couldn't comprehend. A species whose minds were too complex, too varied, too adaptable to be controlled or predicted. All teams, begin Phase 3, Sarah ordered. Download everything. When we're done here, I want the Nexari to understand exactly what happens when you try to eliminate something just because you fear its potential. As the operation continued, Sarah received another startling report. The neural cascade wasn't just affecting Nexari technology. It was affecting the Nexari themselves. Exposure to human neural patterns was causing their own consciousness to become more diverse, more individual. They're evolving, Dr. Rivera observed through the neural link. Our presence, our patterns, were showing them a new way to think. Sarah watched as the last of the data was secured and the human fleet prepared to withdraw. Operation Blindside had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. They had not only crippled the Nexari's ability to wage war, but they had also planted the seeds of change within their society. As the fleet jumped back to FTL, Sarah composed a message to be left behind on all Nexari frequencies. You tried to destroy us because our minds were different. Instead, we showed you that difference isn't a threat. It's the key to evolution. Remember this lesson, because humanity is no longer hiding in the shadows. We're coming to take our place in the galaxy, and we're bringing change with us. The message would echo across Nexari space, marking the beginning of a transformation that would reshape their civilization. Humanity had done more than win a battle. They had initiated a revolution in consciousness itself. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was unlike anything humans had ever constructed. Crystalline spires reached impossibly high into an artificial sky, while representatives from 1,000 worlds sat in concentric rings that spiraled up into the darkness. At the center of it all stood Admiral Sarah Chen, flanked by Dr. Rivera and Maya Patel. The Council had convened an emergency session following the success of Operation Blindside. The Nexary's defeat had sent shockwaves through galactic civilization, forcing the other species to confront a reality they had long ignored. High Counselor Vexthor, a being of pure energy contained within in crystalline form, spoke first. "We have gathered to address the human question. Their actions have disrupted the neural harmony that has governed our civilization for millennia." Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear and unwavering. "With respect, High Counselor, we are here to address the Nexary's unprovoked attempt to genocide our species and this Council's complicity in their actions." A murmur of outrage rippled through the chamber. Maya activated a holographic display, projecting the data they had recovered from the Nexary hub world. The evidence was damning. Not only had the Nexary planned Earth's destruction, but they had consulted with the Council beforehand. "For 10,000 years, Sarah continued, this Council has maintained what you call neural harmony. Every species represented here shares the Nexary's uniform consciousness. You've engineered your entire civilization around it. And then you found us." Dr. Rivera stepped forward, adding his expertise to the presentation. Humanity's neural diversity wasn't a flaw or a threat. It was the next step in cognitive evolution. The Nexary saw this, and instead of trying to understand it, they chose to eliminate it. And this Council gave its tacit approval. The chamber erupted in defensive protests, but Maya's next projection silenced them. It showed the neural patterns of various species, all nearly identical, contrasted with the rich complexity of human consciousness. But there was something else. Recent scans of Nexary neural patterns showing the beginning of diversification. "Look at what's happening to the Nexary," Sarah pointed out. "Exposure to human consciousness isn't destroying them, it's awakening them. Their minds are beginning to evolve, to develop the same diversity you feared in us." High Counselor Vexthor's crystalline form flickered with agitation. "You don't understand what you've done. Neural uniformity is the foundation of our peace, our technology, our very way of life. This diversity you celebrate will bring chaos." "No," Sarah countered, her voice firm. "It will bring growth, evolution, new possibilities you never imagined. The Nexary are already discovering this. Their technology, modified by human neural patterns, is becoming more advanced, more adaptable. Their society isn't collapsing, it's transforming." Dr. Rivera activated another display, showing the advancements they had made by combining human neural diversity with Nexary technology. "We didn't just defeat the Nexary," he explained. "We showed them. And now we're showing you that consciousness can be so much more than uniform patterns repeating endlessly." The Council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had inadvertently initiated a fundamental change in galactic civilization. The very diversity that the Council had feared was proving to be the key to unprecedented advancement. "We are not here to ask for your acceptance," Sarah declared. "We are here to offer you a choice. Continue to fear change, to resist evolution, and you will stagnate. Or embrace the diversity we represent, work with us to explore new possibilities, and watch your civilization transform into something greater than you ever imagined." Maya stepped forward, presenting their final piece of evidence, neural scans showing how human-Nexary interaction had led to exponential growth in both species' cognitive capabilities. "This is just the beginning," she said. "Imagine what we could accomplish together, combining your experience with our adaptability." The Council chamber erupted in heated debate. Some representatives reacted with fear, others with curiosity, and a surprising number with barely concealed excitement. The uniformity that had defined their civilization for millennia was beginning to crack. High Counselor Vexthor raised their crystalline hands for silence. Admiral Chen, your evidence is compelling, but what you propose would fundamentally change everything we have built. Sarah smiled. Change is what we do best, High Counselor. The question is, are you brave enough to evolve with us? The chamber buzzed with discussion as the Council faced its most important decision in 10,000 years. The future of galactic civilization hung in the balance, and humanity had placed themselves at the center of it. As the debate raged on, Sarah observed the subtle shifts in the Council members' behavior, the first signs that exposure to human neural patterns was already affecting them. Change was coming, whether they embraced it or not. Humanity's greatest weapon hadn't been their technology or their tactics, but their fundamental nature. Their beautiful, chaotic, ever-evolving minds. 1 year after the historic council session, Earth had become the center of a revolution that was transforming galactic civilization. The newly established Neural Exchange Center in Geneva hummed with activity as beings from across the galaxy came to study and experience human consciousness. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, watching as a Nexari ship landed gracefully in the corridor below. But this wasn't the same species that had once tried to destroy humanity. The Nexari had changed, their once rigid neural patterns now showing beautiful complexity. The latest results are in, Maya announced, joining Sarah at the window. The neural evolution is spreading faster than we anticipated. Nearly 30% of galactic species are showing signs of increased consciousness diversity.